Hi, everyone. I'm Lisa D'Amico with the Rockland Arts Festival, and I'm here with the fantastic artist, Neil Lavey. Neil, I want to hear more about your piece in the festival. I also want to hear more about you as an artist. I'm very intrigued by your work, so take it away.
Great, thanks. The piece I have in the show is a watercolor. It's actually done from a photo, which I actually don't do too often. Most of my work is done from my head. I didn't actually know what the location of this was, if somebody's Facebook vacation picture. And so I just came up with a title that was sort of generic and authoritative, which was God's Country. I actually thought it was in the Pacific Northwest, but it turns out it's in Maine. But I'm happy with the watercolor, and it's something that I teach. I also I stayed away from watercolors for a long time because I was very intimidated by it as a medium. But I actually took a class at the Rockland Center for the Arts, and I kind of got over my fears, if you will. But I work in all mediums. I work in oil, I work in pastels, I do digital work, and I do sculpture.
Neil, you bring really to every piece you work on, and I don't think I'm exaggerating, an incredible intensity. There's even this landscape we're talking about has such emotion to it.
Thank you. I appreciate it. I try.
Oh my gosh, you knock it out of the park. Has your style always been like this, and how did it evolve?
I'm gonna tip a hat here. It's interesting. I'm actually now working out of the house that I grew up in, which is a long story. But while I was growing up in this house, across the street was a guy named Irv Novick, and he was a comic book artist. And I would come home. He was like the original stay-at-home dad. I'd come home from school and I'd go over and see what the Flash was doing and what Green Lantern was up to, and Batman. I think that influence of him teaching me how, he'd throw a few pieces of paper on the floor and say, and give it a whirl, and I'm working on cold cement, and he would give me pointers on anatomy and perspective, and it really influenced my work early on. I think you see a kind of, people often say my work looks like it's a graphic novel or so forth. There's that influence is definitely there. But then I had classical training. I went to Cooper Union, and I worked in various special effects fields and whatnot in the early '80s. I did a bunch of album covers as well. So that was sort of my journey, and I did advertising for a bunch of years, which I hated. And then I came back to fine art, and so here I am.
Whenever I see one of your pieces, it's got such a narrative quality to it. Like it depending on I guess the viewer's perspective, it can tell
Right.
hundreds of thousands of stories just by imagination solely.
Right. I try to build that into the work. I like to make things that are sort of open-ended, and sometimes people ask me, well, what's going to happen to this guy or something like that, and I just say, well, that's up to you. That's up to the viewer to figure out. There is definitely a narrative. Sometimes it gets a little dark, and but there's also a sly sense of humor. If you look at some of the titles of the works that I do, then you realize I'm not taking myself too seriously. So there's that.
You do a lot of figure work. Do you work from an actual model, photographs?
Rarely.
Imagination?
No, it's all here. Again, I tip the tip of the hat to Irv Novick, because even by the time I was 15 and I was taking adult classes in the White Plains County Center, which they didn't, allow kids to, in high school to sit in with nude models and stuff. But that gave me a leg up to get into those classes, because I was even, when I would work with my father in the advertising field, when they needed a figure drawn, they would come to me and say, well, we need a figure that's doing this or doing that, because he was wonderful at doing, sort of detailed design work. I have a tip of the hat to my parents as well. Both of them were artists as well. So my mother was a wonderful sculptor, even though she didn't do it professionally. but she was a textile designer as well. So both my parents were in the arts.
So it's in your
yeah.
DNA.
It's in my DNA. It's in my makeup. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, I have one last question because
Yeah.
as a fellow artist, but also as a fan of your work, I absolutely love your use of light. It adds such a drama. You create cliffhangers in your painting sometimes.
Glad to hear that.
And I want to know what happens to these people. Where's this expertise with light and dark coming from?
You know, I have a lot of favorites in the art world, like Caravaggio and you know, Vermeer and the classics. I'm really a classicist as far as my tastes in art. I'm not a big abstract or fan of abstract work, just because it doesn't really speak to me. But yeah, I mean, I study it and I try to make it look real. And it's interesting, if you look at most of my pieces, almost always the light is coming from the left-hand side. I don't know why that is, but then, you know, even if I draw something that looks like it's being lit from the right initially, it still ends up getting stronger light from the left. So I just, you know, I do my best. That's all I can do. So, but
Well,
I'm thrilled that you like the work so much. So
yeah, your best is amazing. I mean,
thank you very much.
for everyone listening, please, of course, go to the festival and see more of Neil's work, but follow Neil. Go to his website and follow him on social media and just hold on for the ride of your life.
Thank you. That's very sweet of you.
Neil, thank you so much for speaking to me.
All right, you got it. Have a good one. Take care now.